Welcome back to the Real Estate Sitdown presented by WB Homes and the Pemberton Home Team. This is episode 35, and I'm Blair Berg. Hopefully, wherever you're watching today is a little bit warmer than it was last week. I know last week we went from feels like negative 30 to today we're actually in the 30s. So it's good. Feels like a heat wave here. At the time of recording today is Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. The interest rate for a 30-year conventional loan is 6.95. So not a whole lot different from last week. Again, it went up by, I think, 0.2 from last week. I think we're at 6.93. So again, still hovering right there, and I'm sure they're going to wait and unleash this on the spring market. So if you can afford now, I advise you get in if you can. Totally get if you can't. But if you can afford now, get in at this rate so you can get a decent price on a home and then refinance when you have to. Alrighty. So today we're going to start off with a market update. Just to go here in comparison from December of last year to December of 2023, new listings were actually up by 7%. New listings were up by 7%. Closed sales were actually down 7.5%. Medium sales price and average sales price, those were up. So your percent of original list price received was also slightly up. Days on market until sale, slightly up, but still around the same. Inventory of homes for sale, down by about 300, almost exactly, down by 4.6%. So that is the big change there. The big sticking point is going to be we need to get more homes on the market if we want any relief on those prices. So hopefully that goes up. Again, didn't look so great in December. Now, Minnesota especially, I don't know where you're watching, but December is usually a slower time of year when it comes to real estate. Holidays, the weather's not as great. Less people are looking. So hopefully we can get inventory back up here in the new year. And then just to give it a comparison from November to December, I mean, we went from 3,609 listings down to 2,400. Closed sales also down from November to December. Again, these are all kind of talking points that we're used to going from November to December. So we'll just be looking for those numbers to come up here in the spring. Again, and how we've been talking about it a lot is if that inventory doesn't come up and those rates come down, prices are going to go up. That's just supply and demand for you. When there's not a lot of supply out there and demand goes up, we're going to have to pay a little bit more. So here's hoping that more inventory comes on here in the spring. Next, we will get into, I saw it online. And now just a warning. I see some of this guy's stuff on TikTok sometimes, and I think most of it is kind of extreme, hardo. You got to work 18 hours a day, sauna, cold plunge, blah, 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 or else you'll be broke type of mindset stuff. But again, he does have some good takes on real estate. So we'll go ahead and watch this one and break it down.
If I was in my 20s and a young guy, I would buy a fourplex with an FHA loan.
How's that?
Yeah, rent it out and live in that one unit. Just long enough to rent out my unit and move into another house.
Yep.
I really would.
Yep. It's a fantastic way to get yourself into a property with little money down. Because since you're putting so little money down, you're probably going to break even when you after you collect the rent from the other tenants, or maybe a little bit of cash flow. But that's fine because you know for a fact that once you move out and you put that unit on the market, you're going to be able to go ahead and cash flow.
Yeah. So if you make $100,000 a year and you get approved to buy this fourplex, so not only are you going to get the cash flow, you're going to be able to do a cost segregation study to basically reduce the amount of taxes that you make on your W-2 job. Even if you can't cover all of your taxes, you're still going to get a tax deduction. In fact, the first thing I did in 2013 or 14, I bought a single family, and the first thing I did is turn it into a duplex, and it's cash flowed me $600 a month ever since.
Bam.
So like I said, a lot of good talking points in that video. Yes, getting an FHA and getting into a fourplex is a lot easier than people think. We've had another investor come on and talk about how he did it with only $2,000 at the closing table. But yes, with that FHA loan, you can put 3.5% down, buy that fourplex, use those other three rents to help you qualify for that mortgage Again, we talked about it before. Obviously, you don't actually have those rents yet, but an appraiser can appraise it for market rent, or they can use active leases on that property, and your lender will calculate that in as if it is 75% of that is your actual income, because they can use that to what you'll be paying for the mortgage. So they'll use it to calculate, so it's easier for you to get in. Again, this comes down to people saying, I can't afford a home. And what I'm hearing is you can't afford your dream home, because obviously living in a unit of a quadplex isn't the ideal scenario, right? That's not your dream home. But right now, the system is not fair for most first-time home buyers. It is harder. It's harder than it's usually been. But in as much as I love to fix the system, we can't fix it, right? That's bigger than us. So what we need to do is learn how to play the cards that we're dealt. And right now, this is the hand that you've been dealt, is that getting into one of these can help you start that home ownership journey, because you move in, like I said, you use those other 3 rents for 75% of those rents to help you qualify to get in. That's great. Now, make sure the numbers are right, so that after that first year, after you could claim that with your FHA, and you want to buy another property, once you rent out the property that unit you were living in, now you're collecting rent on 4 units. You should be cash flowing. So now you can use all 4 of those to help you qualify for your next home, right? So now we're getting closer to the dream home. And if you can put off the dream home even longer, who's to say you don't do this 2, 3, 4 times? By year 5 or 6, you have 4 quadplexes. Now you're collecting 16 rent checks a month. You're getting your regular income, and you can use all that to help you qualify for your dream home. Now we can talk about dream homes, right? So on top of that, you're going to make improvements so you can cash out refi. You could take out a HELOC and use that for improvements or to help you buy that home, so you don't even have to use your own cash down when you buy your next home. Again, cash out refis will depend on where rates are at, if you can do that. HELOC will depend on what kind of rate your bank will give you and what kind of equity you've added to the property. But I think that's why it's another great thing is buy properties that you can make updates to. And then we want to talk about cost segregation, and I usually don't even get to that, but especially if you have a W-2 job, that's great. Cost segregation studies, now you're offsetting your income. You're saving money in taxes on something that you bought that's going to improve your life. So I think that's awesome. If you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out, because again, that is the best way to start out as a first-time home buyer. Take an FHA loan, buy a quadplex, live in one of the units, collect those rent checks for a year. Another great thing about that is you don't have to start paying your mortgage for the first 2 months that you actually take possession. So you're collecting those other 3 rent checks for those first 2 months. So you get a little nest egg built up before you even make that first payment. And then when you move out, now you're cash flowing the property, renting out those 4, and you can move on to a better home, right? And then just those baby steps up, but you have to start somewhere. So if you're one of those people out there that thinks I can't afford it, you can afford it. Just try a different strategy. Stop looking at single family. Talk to an agent about getting into a multifamily. Start from there. Or he even said at the end of that, which is really interesting too. This is a little bit harder, a little bit more know-how, but he bought a single family home and turned it to a duplex, right? So he had to make some improvements to it and obviously get it rezoned with the city. But that's a great strategy if you have the know-how to do it, because now you're tapping into a market other people weren't even thinking about, right? Because they're out there looking for the multifamily, and you just turned a single family into a multifamily. Again, you want to Google that a little bit, do some more research, talk to someone who's done it, because that does take a little bit more know-how. So from there, we will now get into FAQs. One thing I get asked by a lot of first-time home buyers when we're going through homes and I'm pointing stuff out, and they're kind of like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. And then they go on to ask, what are some things that I should be looking for when touring a home? Now, there are some big ones that are easy to pick up on once you've seen a couple houses. So, and if you have a good agent, they should be pointing these things out to you as well. But a lot of these things my clients will start to pick up on their own. By the time we get to house 3 or 4, they're like, okay, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. So one big thing I always look for is issues with the foundation, right? And this starts outside. before we even go into the home, if you do a lap around the house, look to see if it looks like any moisture is getting into that concrete block or, whatever the foundation of the home is. And you can see if there's cracks or shifting or bowing. And then when you get inside and you're in the basement, take a look at it. I will lean my head up against the wall, look, and you can generally tell with your eyes if it's straight down, if it's starting to bow a little bit, if there's huge cracks where it's shifting, if you're starting to see moisture come in and they don't have a sump pump system and stuff. So those are things that you're looking for too. On that topic, when you're in a basement, look for a sump pump. If they've had any water issues, look for a sump pump, look for some drain tile. Those are always indicators that, at least they've mitigated the issue, especially if you're in a flood area or places with heavy rainwater. You're going to want to check that out. Next, you're going to want to check age of appliances and utilities. These are just different things, and you can generally spot it even if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. So you're looking at a water heater. If you've seen enough of them, you can tell which ones are newer and which ones are older. A good indicator is to look at up top where the unions are, where the pipes connect to the water heater itself. If those are starting to show some corrosion, it's probably a little bit older. I mean, look for an installation date on it. If it doesn't have that, look for when it's been serviced. When you're looking at a furnace, if it's got the PVC piping instead of the metal pipes, then it's at least been updated for high efficiency, so it's not super old. I mean, if you see like an old octopus boiler system, I mean, those are old. You might have to start budgeting, when you're going to replace that. Then, I mean, you can tell a little bit easier with washer, dryer, dishwasher, fridge. Look, open up the fridge, check, make sure that stuff works. Next, you want to check the electrical panel. You want to make sure that you're not dealing with fuses. Again, when you're looking at walls, settling cracks are normal as long as my kind of rule of thumb is if I can run my fingernail on it, it doesn't really get caught in it. There's not a big separation. Not a huge deal usually. If you're concerned about anything like that, put an inspection in your contract. Make sure an inspector checks it out. Look for bowing in the ceiling. Same with the walls. Other than that, we're looking at mostly cosmetic stuff. I usually like to, if it's a home you're actually interested in, run the sinks, flush the toilets, run the shower, flip on all the lights. Smaller cost thing, but check for GFCI outlets. Those aren't a huge expense to update. So I generally say if you just need to update a few GFCIs, just do that once you move in, or you can ask the sellers to do it as part of your negotiations. And I'm sure I'm going to miss some here, but those are generally, look at windows. Windows end up being a very big expense, and for some reason when people are looking at them, they think it's no big deal. Check, so if it's wood, make sure the wood's not rotting. Make sure the panes are all good. Make sure there's no leaks in the panes. And you'll be able to see because they'll be foggy. Make sure they open and shut. Another big expense too that I've had come up, make sure the garage door works if it has a motor and it's meant to work. These are all things too that if they should be coming up on your inspection when you get that inspection done. If you have any questions on stuff that maybe looks a little bit questionable, just note it for your inspector so he knows and make sure to take a look at that. But these are all a great start for things that you should be looking for. And again, this should be part of the value that your agent is bringing to the table. So if you have an agent, make sure they're checking those things for you. Guys, other than that, I think we will wrap it up. That's it for episode 35. Let's keep commenting, liking, subscribing, turn notifications on. We do this every week. I'm Blair Berg, and this has been another episode of the Real Estate Sitdown.